Hey, what is going on YouTube? Ron here. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We are in the Sejong. We've got a little bit different style video for you guys today. This video was captured the other night on a live stream, and if you saw it, you know the end result, which is unfortunately a loss. And I wanted to put this video up for a few reasons. Number one, it teaches us a few good principles to learn throughout the game. Number two, I wanted to show you guys a game where I don't set a damage record or XP record. We've been pumping out a lot of those and just a lot of good replays. Now, I know that those are more exciting, more fun to watch than me putting up maybe a mediocre game, especially of me losing. But again, I've always tried to preach authenticity, honesty, and, XP records are not set every day, and a lot of people see those games and they go out and try to get the most damage. They try and do exactly what I do or exactly what their favorite streamer, YouTuber does, and they also, think if they have a mediocre game that's a bad game. And in this game here, we right off the bat, you can see that a Friesland set a smoke screen and the Z23 is moving from the opposite side. And that's part of the reason that I just want to sometimes highlight these games. We're going to get into a little bit of the strategy, but the final point, again, is just to show you guys that if you just do the basics, right? If you follow the core principles, you will have a much better experience in World of Warships Legends. And part of that is knowing your role, right, and performing it well. For example, the two destroyers on our team, you should never besides maybe the spawn, and again, situations will vary, but you should never put yourself in the same square as a ship. For example, this destroyer leaving the C side and coming over to B when we already had a destroyer on the B side is a losing play. And you should, try to obviously avoid losing plays if you're trying to win, which is, an oxymoron. Like, you play to win the game. Now, some people go out, they for some reason roll into standard and they just want to see their boat sail across the waves, which is fine. But usually that ends up in a 15-minute game of frustration. So if you're listening to this, trying to improve your gameplay, try to spread out your ships. You'll notice I went to this nearest island here. Now, I am not a radar cruiser. The Sejong is a light cruiser with a good amount of DPM and those deep water torpedoes. We're trying to get lucky on those battleships here. The torpedoes are more of guesswork, right? And you do actually get a lot of them with your reload booster. But you couple that with some good DPM and these smoke screens, and you have a pretty dangerous ship, in the Sejong. Now, that being said, you only have 29,000 health and very light armor. You can be overmatched by a lot. So you need to play yourself. You need to put yourself in a cautious position, right? This ship works the best when you are able to kite away. But it looks like we have an aggressive Agir here, so we're going to go ahead and lead these torpedoes. I put them pretty far in front of him, and then I put a set short. But I need to place sets longer, right? Because sometimes people are accelerating, and that is something that I could work on myself. That being said, I feel like every time I put the torpedoes on the tracker, the line they always miss because I am predicting that enemy players will be like myself and never sail in a straight line, but sometimes you cannot predict the random teammates. Now, if you'll notice, just talking about positioning and losing plays, our two destroyers, both of which are hydro destroyers, well, the Friesland right now is making a good play in trying to get that Ostergotland off the board, but they're putting themselves in the same square. If you've been watching me for some times, you know that I hate when we're in a division, even if it's just with random viewers, and we find ourselves in the same square. And the reason being is because it's a losing play, right? If those battleships all hunched up in between B and C, they have no crossfire. For example, if a ship was to go on the north side of C there, around where that enemy destroyer was spotted, they can bow tank all of our ships at B. On top of that, if you push further up the east side there of C, you can now put those battleships in a crossfire. A lot of people think that is safety in numbers, and that is just not the case. I want you to think of like a zone defense for football or soccer or whatever you call it, right? If you overload one side of the zone, yes, you may get a strong defense on that side, but usually it just opens up passing lanes, and in this case, crossfire lanes. But speaking of our other teammates, our Friesland has already died less than 5 minutes into the game, and we just got our first kill on the enemy team. If you will notice also, the enemy is getting C cap. That destroyer that left C has now left that cap wide open to another destroyer. Now, we do have a battleship in that cap, but if you'll notice, he is broadside to half the team, and he just went down. So right off the rip, due to a failure in positioning, we are down 3 ships. We did our job on our flank. We tried to get A, and a gear pushed us, so we could not really accomplish that task. On top of that, now the destroyer who started at C is now into the A cap. He is getting the cap, but I don't really consider that a winning play. But the reason we mention that is because there's no reason for us to be an A right now, right? So in my mind, I'm working my way back over to C on top of trying to DPM and stop the bleeding that our team, basically shot ourselves in the foot with right off the rip. Again, these are random games. These are random battles. They don't really matter. Some people take this game way too seriously, and I know that because that used to be me, right? I used to say, we have to play in a division all the time and win every game and play the most OP ships. And yeah, that used to be me. Now I just kind of play for fun, but I still like games that are not over in the first 5 minutes. And this one is. Now, we actually make a pretty decent comeback. The Z-23 that did leave the seaside after he made that losing play does make a lot better decisions and plays. But once you give up a game like this, it is very hard to recover from. Also, you can see that the Cleveland is radaring, and it's not a bad play, but it's only a 9-kilometer radar, and unless that destroyer is like right behind that rock there, I just see people panic radar. The other day I saw a guy panic radar, like 2 minutes into the game, and it's just, you want to make sure that you can get 2 or 3 decent salvos depending on your reload into the destroyer or whatever you're trying to radar. I see videos of people rushing in and radaring, and they're behind rocks, right? Like, yeah, you may spot the guy, but it doesn't do any good unless you can shoot him, right? Now, in certain situations, you'll see me pop a radar just because I know I need to know where the other ships are. But in most cases, it's because I have a shot on that destroyer or whatever that ship is. And again, situations will vary. We've said that so many times. People take my statements like, for verbatim, and it's like, well, in this game I had XYZ, and it's like, no, that's not exactly how it works. But anyway, here our team is doing a decent job. The enemy has commenced a throw sequence, and what I mean by that is they are pushing solo, one by one into the middle of a massive, it's not a massive crossfire, but is the remaining, bulk of our ships, right? We're all kind of huddled up behind A here and a little bit on B. So pushing into B, both of what that Bismarck and that Georgia did are just not smart plays. And you will see that so often. People just want damage so bad that they fail to realize, like, okay, if I were to position better and just wait. I preach patience so often in this game, and now recently I've just kind of been pushing in, and the other night I pushed in the Sejong, and it was just the absolute wrong play. But if you follow the principles, right, and you just take a few moments to think, right, a lot of people want this to be Call of Duty with boats, and it's not. Now, some people will turn off crossplay and claim themselves better players for going against 2 people who think it's the other console's fault that they're bad, which is why they turn off crossplay. But that's a little bit of a different story. And Brawl is fun, but if you just, like I said, if you just apply a few moments of logic to this game, for example, don't leave your side. That's just a huge one. I've said that in like every video, and I still see it happening. Now, me reaching the masses of the World of Warships Legends player base is probably not something that's going to happen anytime soon. But anyway, here you can notice, it's about halfway through the game. We've only done 40,000, points worth of damage essentially, so not really a lot, but you'll notice through that entire, 2 or 3 minutes of me blabbering there, I did not shoot my guns. And the reason being is we are a very lightly armored cruiser, and we were waiting for our smoke to come back. On top of that, we got our torpedoes out. But again, if you open water gunboat in this thing, agile build or not, you will probably die. Citadels are very easily armed on, angling shots from this thing, just because there's truly no armor. So you want to be very careful and utilize island cover and smoke screens effectively. Also, if you find yourself getting spammed by a ship like this, number one, you probably positioned yourself poorly in a battleship. I still can't believe people say that spammers are the problem. Like, I've been playing battleships, you saw it with the Montana game, and with these epic mods, even if you don't have them, right, the game is not that difficult to not put yourself in a bad position. And again, that's part of the reason I like faster battleships. But alas, we move on blabbering here. If you'll notice, we're almost tied in ships, and that is when I noticed this Charles Martel. I wanted to make sure he didn't get my broadside because a Martel with a reload booster could obliterate me. On top of a Martel, there was a destroyer, the Fletcher, who was, spotted last on this side. So we're guessing that he was somewhere around this region. Now, because we weren't not detected until that Martel came around the corner, it tells us that he is not really out there. And that is when we spot a smoke screen and we spot the Fletcher. Now, you will see later on, please take note that both the Pan-Asian cruisers and destroyers and a few other nations with access to deep water torpedoes cannot hit destroyers. Now, their logic is that these torpedoes went a little bit deeper underwater, they do more damage, therefore they are harder to detect, but their balancing factor is they cannot hit destroyers. So if you see a Tier 2 lobby and you see a Falrong or whatever the Pan-Asian is trying to torp somebody, just laugh. Because it is always funny to see a Pan-Asian try to torpedo a destroyer. Getting back to a little bit of the strategy of this game, you'll notice that our team has completely given up the right. They gave that up pretty much early on as soon as our destroyer left that side, which is why it is so important, again, just stay on your side. But I see an opportunity here, right? Our team has almost evened this thing up. Now, there is another battleship in the back. It is Mr. Boat Drinks himself. He is a viewer and a smart player. He has positioned himself pretty good, right? He knows that he has the cap advantage. If you look at the points, we are down 350-ish points, right? So there is no reason for the enemy team to be aggressive. If they just sit there, the game is already over. But he is putting himself around that side of C, and that is when I decide to launch these torpedoes at him. On top of that, we are making some, cover. We are putting this island between the Martel and I, and that is when the Fletcher pops around the corner. Now, I'm not sure why he's detected. He was last spotted shooting at our destroyer, and because we were not detected getting around this corner, he is going to absolutely get obliterated. And as soon as I say, I was just talking about launching torpedoes at him, he actually passes in front of him. So if somebody was watching, I may have looked like a bot. But those were meant for the Pommern, and unfortunately they will be spotted for the Pommern, and that is when we blast the Fletcher. So because of our positioning, our concealment, our utilization of our resources from the Pan-Asian cruisers, we got in nice and close to that Fletcher. He wasn't even aware that we were there, although we were spotted previously. But again, some people are just so focused down the barrels, such as this Charles Martel. We snuck up right around this island, and we are actually firing from behind island cover. Another peak pro tip. No, I'm just kidding. I love peak, but I was doing this such a long time ago. And we're getting citadels, but not as many as we want, and that is when the Charles decides to angle. We're trying to save our DD here. If you'll notice, we've got this game a little bit closer than it was, although unfortunately it will not be enough in the end. If this destroyer would have stayed in, initially stayed in contested C, this game might have turned out differently. So, you look at the end result of a game and you're like, wow, yeah, we could have done this, but if you would have done it much sooner, obviously hindsight is always 20/20. But we don't really have time to think about that because we have a Charles Martel on our left and probably a Pommern on our right. You can see me using overview camera here, and I know that boats is waiting, right? So we have to be very careful about backing up into a crossfire. Now, unfortunately, we do not have the right side torps, so what I decide to do here is beach. Now, we do have some pretty favorable firing angles, and I should have launched a widespread first, but I go ahead and launch those, and then I extend to the widespread. Although the first spread would have got him, we go ahead and start to back up. We turn. We dodge all but one of them, and we start popping our heel preemptively. We repair that, and we beat nearly a full health Charles Martel, a full health Fletcher, get a total of 3 kills there, and triple our health's our HP in terms of damage, right? Now, I launch widespreads a little too often, but in this specific scenario, launching widespread actually gives you an earlier firing arc. And what we mean by that is, if you open up your spread to that widespread, you are able to launch those torps further up the arc as opposed to that narrow spread. So the next time somebody is rushing you and you need to get that kill off, think of using widespread to get those torpedoes ahead of the game. Now again, we got him with that first set because he turned, but I should have launched them widespread sooner. But we were just trying to quickly, get in and out of that scenario. In the meantime, though, we have almost tied up this game, but if you will notice, the clock is now under 60 seconds and we are down over 100 points. So getting those caps early on is massively beneficial, and because I know Boats is a smart player, he's not going to fall for the trap of allowing us to kill him. On top of that, he has preserved most of his health. Now, one could argue he could have used it a little bit sooner. He is a battleship, a German battleship with tanky armor, but again, it doesn't matter how you get to the victory or the finish line, it just matters that you get there, right? I know some people say that, yeah, I try to, use all my HP. Well, no, that's not really the best way, but sometimes you should have a healthy mix of your HP, right? If you're a lightly armored cruiser such as myself, you don't really need to be tanking too many shots, but if you're a heavily armored cruiser with good, side plating or good nose armor, then yes, you need to be tanking some shots, and absolutely you need to be attracting some damage if you are a battleship. But this game is going to end up in a loss. If our destroyer would have stayed on that side, who knows what it would have happened. But that is the joy of random battles, which is why some nights I just can't be bothered to play solo. A nice second place finish. A shout out to our Cleveland. He probably got a few points there. Although a secondary, a close quarters expert in a Cleveland is probably not the best medal to get in that ship, especially in a tier 8 lobby. That is a very squishy ship. A few final notes here. Play your side. Know your role, right? Destroyers are meant to spot and get caps. Cruisers are meant to DPM, support destroyers, harass battleships, and tank damage when necessary. Cruisers are the most versatile class, and it depends on which one you're playing. I'm going to be doing a few games on the mobile cruisers, such as the Ibuki and ships like that, as opposed to the heavy cruisers that we have been abusing XP records in. I think you guys know that I know how to play those, and you've seen a lot of videos, so you understand that strategy. But I will be putting up a bunch of different games. Let me know what you guys think of this one. Again, I wanted to put in a mediocre game just to bring myself back down to earth and to let you guys know that even YouTubers, super unicums, whatever you want to call, lose games as well. I hope you guys have a great day. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. As I mentioned, make sure to like, subscribe if you're not already, join the channel memberships. I will be doing a video on fleets here relatively soon, so if you're looking for a fleet, we will have one open to everyone. But yeah, that's it. I'm out, guys. Peace.